Hey everyone, and welcome back to 15-Minute Discourse today. We're going to be diving headfirst into the world of technology forecasting.
Oh, yeah.
You ever wondered how people predict what cool gadgets we'll have in the future?
Right.
Or how industries are going to transform?
Yeah.
We're going to unpack all of that today.
Yeah.
And by the end, you'll be able to drop some serious knowledge bombs at your next tech meetup.
I like it.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out on future episodes like this one.
Sounds good.
I'm excited about this one.
So.
It's a topic that I've always been fascinated by.
Yeah.
And
it's futurism.
yeah,
It's so interesting.
it is futurism. So
Yeah.
what kind of sources are we looking at today to become forecasting gurus?
We've got a really interesting mix of sources today.
Okay.
We've got some academic papers that lay down like the theoretical groundwork. We've got reports from big players like the National Research Council. We've got some historical analyses of trends. And we've even got some practical guides on how this stuff gets used in the real world.
Nice. So it's like a good mix of like theory and
Yeah.
application.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So first things first, what exactly is technology forecasting?
Yeah.
I mean, beyond the obvious, like trying to figure out
Yeah.
what tech is coming next.
Yeah, it's definitely more than just looking into a crystal ball.
Okay.
Technology forecasting is a systematic process, and it's actually surprisingly relevant to your everyday life.
Okay, so no magic involved. Bummer.
Hurry.
But seriously,
Yeah.
how would you define it?
Yeah, I think it's important to remember that technology forecasting isn't about predicting a single fixed future. It's more about exploring a range of possibilities and understanding the forces
Yeah.
that drive innovation. So the National Research Council, in their 2010 report, defined it as predicting the invention, timing, and characteristics of a new technology that serves a useful purpose.
So it's less about saying like, this specific gadget will exist in 2030,
Right.
and more about understanding
Yeah.
the broader trends and possibilities.
Exactly. It's about understanding the why behind technological change, not just the what.
Okay.
Another report, this one's from the Tory Group in 2012, emphasized that, looking at the emergence of entirely new technologies, how existing ones evolve, and even how tech jumps into new fields.
Yeah.
Remember when smartphones were just for calls?
Right?
Now they're practically an extension of our brains.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It is. I'm starting to see how this goes. Way beyond
Yeah.
just guessing what the next iPhone will look like.
Right.
But why should our listeners care about this?
Yeah.
How does technology forecasting actually impact their lives?
Well, imagine you're an investor trying to decide where to put your money,
Okay.
or you're leading a company and you need to anticipate market shifts. Or maybe you're just someone who's curious about what the world might look like in 5, 10, or 20 years.
Yeah.
Technology forecasting gives you a framework for making those decisions and navigating that future.
So it's like having a roadmap, even though the terrain might change along the way.
Exactly. It helps us make informed decisions, allocate resources wisely, and maybe even avoid being totally blindsided by those disruptive innovations everyone's always talking about.
Right, yeah. Those are
Yeah.
the ones that come out of nowhere and kind of change the whole game.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so we know it's about exploring possibilities and making smarter choices, not gazing into a crystal ball.
Right.
But how do people actually do this forecasting thing?
Yeah.
What are the main approaches they use?
Well, there are two main camps in technology forecasting,
Okay,
exploratory and normative.
2 camps. Okay, this sounds intriguing. Do we need to pack our camping gear for this?
No camping gear required. But think of it this way. Exploratory forecasting is like being a detective. You examine the clues, the historical trends, data, and patterns to project what might happen.
So like looking at how computing power has been increasing exponentially and trying to project where that might lead us.
Exactly. You're thinking of Moore's Law, a classic example of an exploratory forecast.
Oh, yeah.
We also use tools like S-curves to visualize how technologies are adopted over time, slowly at first, then rapidly, then eventually leveling off.
Oh, yeah, I've seen those S-curves.
Yeah.
It's like how it took forever for people to switch to smartphones.
Yeah.
But now it seems like everyone has one.
That's a perfect example. And sources like Wabe's 1983 paper on technology forecasting and Bon and Roca's work give us a solid foundation for understanding these exploratory approaches.
Okay, so exploratory forecasting is all about looking at the past to get a glimpse of the future.
Right.
What about this normative camp? Does that involve setting norms for how robots should behave?
That's a different kind of normative, but a fascinating thought.
Yeah.
Normative forecasting is more about envisioning a desired future
Okay.
and then working backwards to figure out what needs to happen to get there.
So instead of just letting the future happen to us, we're like architects designing the technological world we want.
Precisely. Let's say we want widespread renewable energy adoption. By 2050,
Okay.
normative forecasting would help us map out the technological advancements, the policy changes, even the shifts in social attitudes needed to make that happen.
Wow. So both approaches have their strengths. Exploratory is grounded in data and trends, while normative is more goal-oriented and visionary.
Right.
But in the real world, do people actually stick to just one approach or the other?
It's often a blend.
Okay.
You might use exploratory methods to understand the trajectory of existing technologies, then layer on normative approaches
Right.
to guide strategic decisions and R&D investments.
So it's like taking the best of both worlds.
Exactly. And that's where it gets really interesting, because within these two broad approaches, there's a whole toolbox.
Ooh, a toolbox. So I get to play with a futuristic laser level?
Maybe not a laser level.
Yeah.
But I can promise some fascinating insights into the tools professionals use to predict the future of technology.
All right, I'm ready to dive into that toolbox. We'll do that right after a quick break. Don't forget to like and subscribe to 15-Minute Discourse so you don't miss the rest of this episode. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to 15-Minute Discourse. Before the break, we were about to crack open the technology forecasting toolbox.
Yes, we were.
What hidden are some of the methods that get used in this field?
Well, some of the most common ones include trend extrapolation, which is essentially extending a historical trend to the future. Think of it as like saying, if things keep going this way.
Like assuming that Moore's law, that doubling of computing power will just keep going forever.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
But we have to be careful with that kind of thinking.
Okay.
Especially when it comes to brand new technologies. A 2008 paper by Albersti cautions that simple trend extrapolation can be wildly inaccurate when dealing with tech that hasn't fully emerged yet.
Makes sense. We can't just draw straight lines on a graph and assume that's how everything will play out.
Right.
What are some other tools in this forecasting toolbox?
Another one is analyzing growth curves.
Okay. Like those S-curves we mentioned earlier. They visually represent how technologies are adopted over time.
So by studying those curves, can we kind of predict how quickly a new technology might take off?
Exactly. We can look at historical examples, like the adoption of smartphones, to get an idea of the different phases of adoption.
Okay, cool.
But it's not just about looking at gadgets. Bibliometrics is a fascinating method
Bibliometrics.
that involves analyzing publications, citations, and research trends.
So instead of just asking one expert what they think, we're looking at what a whole bunch of experts are writing and citing.
Yeah.
Like crowdsourcing for technology forecasting.
That's a great way to put it. It's about tapping into the collective intelligence of the scientific community to identify emerging areas and key players.
Okay.
And then there's patent analysis.
Patent analysis.
Which can be surprisingly revealing.
Patents. Those sound kind of dry and legal. What could they tell us about the future of tech?
Patents are gold mines of information. They reveal what companies are actually working on, what problems they're trying to solve, and where they're investing their resources. It's like being a tech detective.
I like it. Okay, I'm starting to see how these different methods kind of fit together. We've got trend extrapolation, growth curves, bibliometrics, patent analysis. Anything else in this toolbox?
Oh, we've got plenty more.
Okay.
Scenario planning is a powerful tool that involves imagining multiple possible futures.
Ooh, like a choose-your-own-adventure for technology forecasting.
It's a bit more structured than that.
Okay.
But the idea is to develop strategies to respond to different possibilities, both good and bad.
So it's about being prepared
Right.
for anything that might happen.
Exactly. It's about preparing for uncertainty, which is a huge part of predicting the future.
Right.
And then there's expert elicitation.
So we finally get to ask the really smart people what they think.
It's a bit more nuanced than that. While expert opinions are valuable, research has shown that they can often be overconfident, especially when making long-term predictions.
Okay.
A 2021 study by Savage et al. Highlighted how even the best experts can miss the mark.
So it's not enough to just ask an expert.
Right.
What's going to happen?
Right.
We need a more systematic approach
Yeah.
to gathering and interpreting
Yeah.
their insights.
Exactly. And that's just a glimpse into the diverse toolkit of technology forecasting. The key is to choose the right tools for the job and to use them wisely.
Okay, so we've got all these cool tools, but how are they actually being USE
Yeah.
in the real world?
Yeah.
Are government agencies and businesses really relying on these methods to make decisions?
Absolutely. The D5735 report, for example, offers insights into how these tools are being applied in practice.
Yeah.
Different organizations have different needs and timeframes.
Yeah.
A government agency focused on long-term national security might use scenario planning and expert elicitation to anticipate emerging threats and develop strategic responses.
So they're thinking decades ahead, trying to figure out what kind of tech could disrupt the global balance of power.
That's a big part of it. They need to be prepared for a wide range of possibilities, even ones that seem far-fetched today.
Wow.
On the other hand, a business might use trend extrapolation and market analysis to make shorter-term decisions about product development and investment.
So if a company's deciding whether to invest in, say, virtual reality,
Yeah.
they'll look at market trends,
Yeah.
what the competition is doing, and whether it's worth the risk.
Exactly. They're looking for signals that indicate where the market is heading, and they need to be able to react quickly to changes. It's all about using these tools to make smarter decisions in a rapidly evolving tech landscape.
This is all fascinating. But I have to admit, sometimes all this data and analysis can feel a bit cold and impersonal. Where's the human element in all of this?
That's an important point, and it's something that often gets overlooked. At the end of the day, technology is created and shaped by people, our needs, choices, and sometimes even our biases.
It's true. Sometimes I wonder if
Yeah.
we're creating technology that we actually need, or if we're just being seduced by shiny new gadgets.
That's a crucial question to consider. We can't just look at data and trends. We need to understand the human factors that drive innovation and the impact of technology on society as a whole.
So we need to be mindful of the human element, both in how we forecast technology and in how we develop and use it.
Absolutely. Our sources provide some compelling examples of how human factors can influence the direction of technological change. One fascinating story from the D5735 report highlights the development of high-temperature materials for jet engines.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me more about this jet engine saga.
In the early days of jet engine development, there were two competing schools of thought on how to improve performance. One group believed that the key was to develop new materials that could withstand higher temperatures.
So like super strong heat-resistant metals that wouldn't melt inside a jet engine.
Exactly. They were pushing the boundaries of material science, trying to create something that had never existed before.
Wow.
The other group believed that the solution lay in improving cooling technologies.
So instead of making the engine parts themselves
Yeah.
more heat resistant,
Right.
they wanted to find better ways to keep them cool.
Precisely. They argued that even with the best materials, there would always be limits to how much heat they could withstand.
It became a technological showdown. This is getting good. Who won?
Well, it wasn't a clear-cut victory for either side. Both approaches had their merits, and ultimately both contributed to the advancement of jet engine technology.
So it was a collaborative effort. Even though they had different ideas, they both helped move the field forward.
Exactly. What's interesting is that the decision of which path to pursue was influenced by a complex interplay of factors, not just technical feasibility, but also funding priorities, personalities of the key researchers, and even the geopolitical context of the Cold War.
Wow. So it's not just about the science itself. It's about the people, the politics, the whole context in which the technology is being developed.
Absolutely. And that's a crucial insight for anyone interested in technology forecasting. We can't just focus on the tech in isolation. We need to understand the human element that shapes its trajectory.
This has been incredibly eye-opening. We've talked about what technology forecasting is, why it matters, the two main approaches, a whole toolbox of methods, and now the undeniable human element. We'll continue this fascinating discussion in the final part of our deep dive, so don't go anywhere. Welcome back to 15-Minute Discourse. We've been exploring the world of technology forecasting, from the methods used to predict the future to the human factors that influence its course.
It's complicated stuff.
Yeah, it really is. But now I kind of want to zoom out a little bit and look at the bigger picture. What does this all mean for us, the non-futurists, just trying to navigate this ever-changing technological landscape?
I think that's a really important question. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, But ultimately, technology forecasting is about empowering ourselves
Okay.
to make informed decisions about the future.
So it's not just about passively observing the future unfold.
Right.
It's about actively shaping it.
Exactly.
We're not just along for the ride.
We have choices. One of the most important takeaways from this whole deep dive is that the future of technology is not predetermined. It's not some inevitable march toward a single outcome.
So it's not like those sci-fi movies where we're all zipping around in flying cars, robots have taken over all the jobs, and we're all wearing silver jumpsuits.
Yeah, those are fun to think about.
Yeah.
But the reality is much more nuanced.
Okay.
The future of technology is shaped by the choices we make, the investments we prioritize, and the questions we ask.
So instead of just letting the future happen to us, we can actually influence its direction.
Absolutely. Every time you download an app, buy a new gadget, or support a particular company, you're casting a vote for a specific technological future. Those seemingly small choices, when multiplied across millions of people, have a huge impact.
That's a really powerful thought, but it also feels like a lot of responsibility.
It is.
How do we know we're making the right choices?
Yeah, that's tough.
It's not like we have crystal balls to tell us which tech companies are going to use our data for evil,
Right.
or which inventions will turn out to be duds.
You raise a valid point. There are no guarantees.
Right.
And predicting the future is inherently uncertain. That's why critical thinking is essential.
Yep.
We need to be media literate, questioning what we read and see. We need to engage in informed consumerism, doing our research before we jump on every tech trend.
So it's about being thoughtful, doing our homework, and not just blindly following the hype.
Exactly. Don't accept things at face value. Dig deeper. Ask
Sure.
questions. And consider the potential implications of a new technology before you fully embrace it. And most importantly, talk about it.
Yeah.
Discuss your concerns with friends, family, and colleagues. Debate different viewpoints. And together figure out what kind of future you want to create.
That's a fantastic point. Technology forecasting shouldn't be something
Yeah.
that only happens in boardrooms and government labs.
Right.
It's a conversation we should all be a part of.
I agree. The more informed and engaged we are as individuals, the more likely we are to shape a technological future that benefits everyone, not just a select few.
Well said. I'm feeling inspired
Yeah.
and ready to start shaping the future. But before we wrap up this deep dive, let's just summarize the key takeaways
Sure.
for our listeners. They've been with us on this journey, and we want to make sure they walk away with some actionable insights.
Here are a few key points to remember. First, the future of technology is not predetermined. It's shaped by our choices, our investments, and the questions we ask.
Okay.
Second, technology forecasting is not about predicting the future with perfect accuracy. It's about exploring possibilities, understanding the forces at play, and making informed decisions.
Gotcha.
Third, technology doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's influenced by social, economic, political, and cultural factors. We can't ignore those influences.
Yeah.
And finally, we all have a role to play in shaping the technological future.
I love those. It's about embracing complexity, thinking critically, and recognizing that the future is not something that just happens to us.
Right.
It's something we can actively shape.
I like that.
And speaking of shaping the future, we want to leave you with a final thought to ponder.
Okay.
If you could accurately forecast one technological breakthrough, what would it be and why? Think about it. Explore the sources we've mentioned, and maybe even do some forecasting of your own.
That sounds like fun.
It's been a pleasure exploring this with you.
Likewise.
And thank you for listening to 15-Minute Discourse. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. Until next time, keep those minds curious. And remember, the future is in your hands.